Welcome to Intune Training, the place to learn Microsoft Intune, the Steve and Adam show, with your host Steve and our special guest host Jóhannes, who's filling in for Adam today because Adam's packing bags to go on an adventure. So today, what are we going to talk about, Jóhannes?
We're going to talk about Windows Labs.
And how it's easy, right? We just link it to Active Directory and then we can connect it into Config Manager and it's all magic, right?
Active Directory, what is that? I haven't heard that in like 10 years. Do people still use that?
Apparently, just to turn it off. I know me personally, my conversation with customers is, well, we're going to turn off your domain controllers, and watching everybody in the room just go, what do you mean you're turning off your domain controllers? And it's like, I didn't say tomorrow. I said we're going to turn it off. It may take 5 years, but that's where we should be getting to.
That's the goal.
That's right. But no, so obviously, as much as I jest, we're going to be talking about Azure Active Directory and Windows Labs and how we link that into Intune. So I'm going to get Jóhannes to share his screen because actually he already has. And let me do this. Wow, magic.
Look at that. So there are a few things we need to enable, some more obvious than others. So We'll start with you go to your Azure.
So we're starting in Azure Active Directory. Yep, cool.
Hit devices, device settings.
But I could just hit the local admin password recovery preview, right? That will just work. That's where I set it in the left-hand side. Oh, no. But there's no config there.
There's no config here. So first you need to go to device settings.
Oh, okay, cool. Because we need to set the policy for the device.
This has tripped up quite a lot of customers.
Yep, that makes sense.
If you scroll down, you need to enable this.
And to note, this is a tenant-wide setting. But don't be concerned in setting it. We'll talk about why in a minute.
Hit save.
Cool.
I don't believe there are any specific additional licensing or cost associated with this at all.
So this is based, so long as you have AAD Basic, and I believe it's even Windows 10 Pro, you can use AAD Local Admin Password Solution or LAPS to be able to manage it. And we jumped straight through to it, but we probably should talk about what LAPS actually is, because we're assuming that everybody knows what LAPS is. So the Local Admin Password Solution is a great functionality that will manage your local administrator password on all of your client computers. And I'm going to put a very big asterisk there because it's not only your Windows computers. We don't do Mac, we don't do Chrome. It's your Windows computers. And we're going to sit there and then rotate those passwords on a set schedule that you can define. And you can also define the account that you're going to leverage and use for that. So you can get it to the point where you have different accounts for each region, as an example. Yes. But anyway, we'll step into that.
So the next step, and this is one that is a very common mistake that people make.
Nuanced.
So when they enable LAPS and they configure the LAPS policy, which will be the third step, they assume that the local admin account will be enabled.
Correct, because it should be, right?
But by default, it is disabled, so we need to enable it. So
the other thing that I'll put onto this one, and this is the fun part, is when you actually deploy the actual LAPS policy, it will report it was successful even if the account doesn't exist.
Yes, and that's what trips up a lot of customers.
Yep. And the rationale for that, while we go through this navigational play, is why that's doing that is we're sitting there and saying, well, that policy is set on the device. The process that needs to consume that policy, well, you didn't ask me if that ran successfully. You just said, is the policy set on the device? So it's not wrong, but it's right. So what we're doing here is we're going to the Devices tab, we're going to Windows, and then we're going to Configuration Profiles. And then from here, we're going to create a new profile under Windows 10 and later. And to note, this is supported on Windows 10, but you do need to have the latest updates installed on your computer. I believe it is the May updates. Tell me in the subscription comments below if I got it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's May 2023. And we need to put some emojis in there. Hang on, Windows and semicolon. Got to have padlocks in there and stuff. That's the rules, right? So we're going in here and we're setting up that local account. Jóhannes.
So you can just search for accounts, enable administrator account status. You select the local policy security options, and you select accounts, enable. Yep. And
that makes life a lot easier. And then we hit close on the settings pickup, and you enable it. So one thing you actually need to do as well here, Jóhannes, is you need to set a password on that account. If you don't set a password for the first time, it won't actually run the labs properly.
Yeah. So hit next. No scope tags.
And we've actually been well organized on this, and we've actually created an AAD group for this. And we're going to call it Windows Labs.
One word, right?
Well, one word, because spaces are evil.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
It's all about the tabs.
Hit create. And then we go to the endpoint security node, and then account protection. And now we create our lapse policy.
Yes, we do.
So Windows 10 and later, and account protection. Lapse policy.
Cool. And we're going to go and set this up.
Wait, whoops! I think I made the wrong one. Huh?
I think you did, because that looked like a Windows Hello policy.
Yes. I mean, welcome to Intune training.
That's right.
We do this live. So it's not account protection, it's local admin password solution.
You know what, Jóhannes? It could be the one that says local admin password solution or Windows Labs. I think that's what we're talking about.
That's the one.
So we're going to create this. We need to put some emojis in there. So local admin password or Labs, yep. And a thing to note, when we step into this, we'll see in a second, we can sit there and say, well, where do we want to back up the policy? And this is actually really interesting. We can do it to AAD or AD. So this is where it gives you that flexibility. If you're still in the hybrid world, you can use that local on-prem scenario while you're still in that transition to the AAD world. The top one, you
cannot do both.
Correct.
For those of you thinking you can do both, that you could create two policies and, point to either direction. That's not how this works.
No. And the other thing to note is that first one, password will not be backed up. That sounds crazy, right? Like, why would I not want to back up my password? So, well, it's more secure that way. I got told by my security team I need to rotate my password. They didn't say I needed to know what it was.
Yes.
And I've got my global admin password to step into it, or I've got my domain admin password to step into it. So,
but in our case, we are absolutely, we can do the modern thing, and of course, say
we definitely want to use the AAD, right? The next part we're going to set is whether we want to do days. By default, it's 30, but you can set this between 1 and 90, I believe.
I think it's this. Oh, the maximum allowed value is 365.
Wow, there we go. I would have. Okay.
Yep, 365.
And 7 days is the minimum. So the next part we can set is administrator account name. So we can change this from the default to whatever account that you use today. So then from your training and educational point for your support staff, it's going to be that same experience and same conversation. So this is where you can work together to make sure your life is easy, or you can go, hey, this is a new service. We're going to create a new account. And we're going to deploy that out. We're going to use the default administrator account because that's what we created it or enabled in the previous policy. In the
You don't need to enable this.
Yes, in the scenario where you're sitting there and creating or putting your own name in there, you need to, in the previous policy that we set up, you need to go in and create a user account and make sure it lands into the administrator group. We're not going to do that for you as creating this policy. Password complexity, well, it has to be everything, right? Large letters, small letters, so capital, lowercase, numbers and special characters. So that's what I'd be recommending as a minimum if you're going to go down this path of using local admin password. Me personally, if the account's disabled, why do I need it? But that's a completely different conversation. And this is accepting the premise that your security team is saying that you need to have that account on the device. We're going to set our password length. The longer, the better. The longest you can do is 64 characters, so we want it 65.
You want to do that for the demo? Or are you going to type it in?
No, let's do it. Let's do it as a smaller number, even though it's just going to be copy and pasting. And we can specify that it's going to be whatever we want, right? And then the next part is that post-authentication process. This is where once I go and authenticate, do I want that password to change automatically or not? Do I set it on a grace period? And it's actually pretty cool in that you can basically set it up so it's a use once scenario, so your users can't just retain that key forever. But you can also make it so they can.
This did not exist for the old version of
Correct.
Microsoft Labs.
Yep. And this is where you're seeing that deep integration into the Windows stack, as well as the Intune platform.
Of course, we're going to force a reboot, right?
Yep, of course. And then you can set that. So this one's the fun one, right? So we'll take off the informatic. We sit there and say the post-authentication reset delay, we're configuring that to 24. Is that 24 minutes, seconds,
It's
days?
24 hours.
Oh, 24 hours.
Mm.
But otherwise you can set it to 0 and it'll disable that process, or you can change it to 1. I'd be curious, can we put it as 0.1?
That is a good question.
Nah, it has to be a full number.
Yeah. So 1 hour is effectively the minimum.
Correct.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend setting this to 24 hours because that's probably going to result in somebody being very, very surprised the next day.
They shouldn't be using it anyway if they've still got it the next day. But the point is valid, right? We want, as soon as somebody has access to this account and uses that account, we want it to go and change that password and restart, because I don't know what you're doing on there and I want to clear up that process. And this is the same scenario as what you're using with remote desktop. Remote help. Anyway, let's go next. And we need to not do scope tags because that's not what we're using. And then we're going to go and specify this to our Windows Labs group.
Next, create. And now, I believe it's over to you.
Yes. So what we're doing here is I'm going to quickly flick over to my computer that I prepared earlier, literally 20 minutes ago. And I'm now going to go in here. I've got the latest update installed on there. I'm just going to quickly sync that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to computer management really quickly. And hopefully we'll get there before the admin account. No, admin account's been enabled. So we've got that policy applied saying the account is enabled. So that's how quickly it has actually applied in the environment. From a Labs point of view, what I'll get you to do, Jóhannes, is on your screen, is if we go back to the AAD portal and we'll see if that password's existing there. So I'm just going to put back onto your screen and we'll go back to that local administrator password area and we'll see if it's already uploaded the password yet. It might not have, but this is where you'll see that password exist. And look, if we look at this and go, oh, hang on, that doesn't seem really productive to our end users and our support team that they need to break out of the Intune portal, because I don't want my support staff going into AAD. You can go via devices and access it in there as well. So, and it's not an auto patch device. We want to select all devices.
Oh, whoops.
That's okay.
Just for the audience, it is 2 a.m. my time.
Yes. So now what we're going to select in here is desktop KMS.
Desktop. Oops. My icon, I need to make this a little bit bigger.
Let's just collapse the other tabs. Yep. Cool. And then in here, what we're going to have is that local admin password. So if we click on that, do we see anything there yet? So I'm still syncing on my side. I'm just going to do a quick restart of the computer and see if we can get that policy to apply. So the rationale for this scenario is so each of your computers has that separate password on the computer. Makes sense, mostly logical. Me personally, I sit there and go, but I don't want that account to actually be enabled because it's a known SID. So here's the part that you need to understand when we're talking around the default inbox administrator account, why you want to use a different name on that account or a different account name and completely different object is because the SID for that object is well known. It ends in 500 always. So this is why you should be creating a new account, because then it means the hackers can't sit there and confirm what level of privileges they have, because the local administrator account, the default one, actually has additional controls and access assigned to it that are not always fully documented, even if you take it out of the administrator group. That's a lesson for the young'uns floating around. So we're just waiting for that to sync through, and that will come up shortly. And I'm just quickly on my computer, I'm just going to flick over to mine. All we're doing again is we're just going and doing a sync on that.
There are some event logs we can look at to see exactly what is going on. They are pretty good.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Let's go to Event Viewer and see if we actually have access to it. Yay! And do you remember where they're located off the top of your head?
No. It's one of those things where I know what it is when I see it.
Okay.
But like the Laps, even like the old legacy version of Laps and the new one, this has been fairly reliable. I even say very reliable. But this isn't really something you need to troubleshoot a whole lot.
Yeah. And that's the goal, is to make it as simple as possible.
I think this is called Laps, something Laps.
Security.
No, might just be Windows Laps, but
Windows, no. There we go. Hey, how about we use the feature that says Laps?
Laps.
And you'll see that it was successfully loaded and initiated. And we've got this is, and this comes down to that conversation we were saying earlier around it's processing it and using it. So we haven't actually processed it since the policy is applied, but it's still going through that process. So we'll just right click on here and we'll hit a resync on that. And if we check in the portal, are we seeing anything in there?
Absolutely nothing.
Cool.
Let's give it an Intune minute. Let's see.
Exactly. And this is the fun part where we have replication in our environment because we're in various different countries. Because we took the access off my account earlier, Jóhannes, I can't go in and look at the moment. Fun story for those playing at home. To be able to demonstrate this, we had to remove my account from the global administrator group. And because of that, I don't have a global administrator account at the moment in the Intune training tenant. Because this is how you should be setting up your account. Your account shouldn't be global admin, but in our environment, because it's so small, we just go, oh yeah, whatever, that's not a problem. We don't have that concern, but don't do what we do. Make sure your accounts are set up correctly.
Do as we say, not as we do.
That's the Microsoft mantra. So I'm just going to quickly restart my VM again and try and force that conversation for it to update the local admin password.
Yeah. Still nothing in the portal. Believe you have done everything right.
Well, the one thing that we should check as well is let's actually see if Intune is reporting that the configuration policy is applied correctly.
Ooh, that's a good point.
So if we can go through and look at here, or we can look at the,
This one was success. And we can look at the...
that's
this
fine.
one's absolutely going to be successful.
That one's fine. Let's close that one and go here. And if we go to device configuration, it's what I think it's going to be. And this one catches out a lot of people, is that we need to set that initial password in the settings catalog to enable when we're enabling the account.
Yeah,
because laps won't work without a password being set on the account initially. In my experience, anyway.
Yeah. So we can go and do that. But even on a brand new device, it should have a password set.
It does, but there's a part of a process around it. This is what we've found when we've been doing our validation internally for some other stuff that's going on.
Still nothing. Well, we can go try and. Do you remember how you do that? Because I.
Yep.
Configuration policy.
So then we go into. No. Just to go into the existing settings catalog policy for enable local admin account. And then in there, what we're going to do is we're going to edit that. And then the easiest option is just search for password in the settings. And I believe it's going to be under accounts.
Nothing for password.
What? Is it under authentication? Nope.
Not a whole lot here under accounts. Not a whole lot. The magic of video editing is going to make this look really smooth.
No, it's not. We're not going to edit this at all, because this is part of that whole experience of people understanding, well, yeah, it should just work, but there are going to be situations where we need to do this.
Yeah.
Just bear with me. I'm just bringing up the setting here.
Yeah, I just checked my own test tenant, and I I didn't need to set a specific password.
Oh, no, you don't.
So maybe this is just taking a little bit of time.
Oh, no, it was an early guidance and advice. I do apologize. We have changed that. So it can take a bit of time to process through. Well, that's awesome. And company portal. And I'm just doing another sync on my device to get this to go through and process. And we haven't got a password synced yet. No. So what should happen here is we should be getting a policy saying, hey, it's enabled, which it's loading, it's unloading, but it's not actually enabling it yet. Just to confirm, we did deploy the policy to enable it. For in the settings catalog one.
Yep. Yep, that was.
Nah, there's also a setting in the settings catalog for enable local admin password management.
Oh. I think that's for the legacy labs.
It may well be. So if we just search for enable local admin password management, we'll just slaps you. And let's have a look at the informatic on that one.
Close this down first.
And hit learn more, because that will tell us which one this is for. This looks like it's needed.
Oh, we can just enable it.
Yep.
But I
It
don't
be
recall
needed.
doing this, but yeah, sure, we can. What I suspect is actually happening is that this is just taking a while to actually kick in.
It can take some time, yes.
Now, for those of you wondering, I believe that the Windows Labs policies, they will supersede the old ones.
Correct. So if you've got existing, all you need to do, and this is the simplicity of the process, when you deploy the new policies, they'll just override the existing, and then your new password for that account will exist wherever you say, whether it's Active Directory or AAD. And it's just going to use the new engine. It's thinking. No.
Oh, boo.
No bueno. Well, I think it's just done something. Yep. Yep, it's just done something. So if we go back over here, I'm just going to show you on my side. What we have in here is we now have 23 messages.
Hey, if you switch back to me, It just kicked in.
And there we go. So we can see that password. But while that's going through, I'll just show you on the event logs, even though I find it interesting. What you can see here is it's saying, hey, yep, it's actually uploaded it and it's sent it across. We've got the RID, or the resource ID, hash, everything associated, what the password is. But this one here is actually pretty cool. It actually gives you the endpoint that it's sending it to and all of the data points associated with that. So if you're seeing that, it means that it's there. And you'll see that the password has expired, needs to be changed and make it work, or missing inconsistent. And that's the main reason why it's changing, right? Is because it's missing or inconsistent.
But there's one thing that is important to keep in mind is that the lab solution will not change the password on the device unless it's able to write it to Active Directory or Azure Active Directory.
Correct.
It will never leave you stranded.
That's exactly right. So it will only write that password to the client device once it's validated that it's written to the cloud. And then it will go and synchronize to make sure it's consistent. So what we're going to do now is Jóhannes is going to go and get that password, and we're going to copy and paste it into our chat between the two of us. And then from here, we're going to go and we're going to run a terminal session as administrator. So because it's a local account, we need to do /admin without the T, and then I'm going to copy our complex password that is in the chat, and I'm going to type that through into my VM, and we're going to hit yes. And then we'll have an issue with terminal on this computer.
Probably because that account doesn't have terminal installed in its context.
Yeah, more than likely. So if we go /admin and we're just opening up command prompt now, we're going to type that in and we're going to hit yes.
I'm going to add you to the stream.
Who am I? Oh, whoops! Was I not on the stream? We can start again.
You forgot to do it. We can do it again.
So let's close that down again. So obviously from the terminal point of view, which is the logical place, hey, I'm just going to go to terminal. I'm going to go /admin and we'll paste in that password. We're going to hit yes. It can't be found. That's because it's an Apex and it's not in the context. So we're going to go and use a lower level application being command line, and you'll see the run as administrator. We're going to again do / because that's how you use the local account. We're going to type that keyboard in. We're going to hit yes, and then we're going to go, who am I? And you'll see that that's the device name and then /administrator. If we go back to the event log, what we should see in here is that we successfully used the managed account. And you'll note that it has been scheduled to execute post-authentication action after the grace period. So in an hour's time, this account will automatically go through and reprocess and change the password, which is pretty cool, right?
But you can use the password as many times as you want for that hour or for that time that you specify.
And the other thing to note is if the account or session is still open, you can continue using it. This is why you want to make sure you're restarting the computer so all the sessions are cleared when you go through that process. We're not going to sit here for an hour and wait for this to go through. As fun as it would be, I think Jóhannes will be very, very, very asleep by then. But this is the scenario you can talk through and have that conversation. So
there is one other thing we might want to try. If you sign out in the VM and try to log in as that account.
Okay. Let's see what happens. We want to sign out, and we're going to go other account /admin. Can you just type in administrator and it'll change? Yes, but I get into the habit and we go sign in, and we can sign in.
Yes. So if you need that interactive session, now you can use terminal. So if you need that interactive session, or if the machine is just in that broken of a state, you can absolutely use this to fix it.
What I will say is only if your security team has allowed your administrator account to sign in interactively, which some organizations don't allow for very valid reasons. Because, RDP is a good example. You don't want it. Anyway. It's a completely different tangent. We won't go down that journey, but yes, you can definitely go through and set that up and block it. But as you go in here, we can go, okay, let's go and run it as admin. Now we can run terminal as admin, and we go, who am I? And spell it correctly, and you'll see again it's the administrator account. So we're all happy. But you will note that this isn't terminal, it's just loaded up PowerShell. Because it's changed to PowerShell, not terminal, because it's the local administrator account. Cool. So I think that's done it. We got it done in 35 minutes. I'm pretty impressed, Jóhannes. And that's part of that whole conversation around Windows Labs is it's simple. It's something that you can just turn on. Like we literally had a cameo from Adam earlier where he's like, oh yeah, I gave this to my intern for the summer. And he had it done, documented, and approved by security in a week. And it's like, it's technically possible to do this. So this is part of that conversation of, well, why not enable it if you need that level of control? If you're like me who go, well, I don't want that account active, then the conversation starts, well, do we need to actually enable the account? Or do we just sit there and keep resetting the password? And if the device gets toasted, well, we just reset it. All the files are synced. We know the files are synced. We know the apps are coming from Intune. So how's that any different than my mobile phone where I don't have an admin account on that? So it's two very different schools of thought.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of, I'll say this as politely as I can. It's just a matter of letting go.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jóhannes, and thanks everybody for watching. Let us know how you get on with setting up labs and if you've got any questions in the comments. You never know, we might actually respond. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye.